So you edited an awesome video, but when you export it from Premiere, it just doesn't look right. Let me help you out. What's up guys, my name is Dax Relay, but we're gonna get right into this video, no intro, on how to export from Premiere Pro. Let's hop in the computer, I'm gonna show you how to do it. So we're here in the computer, and this is a little sequence I created for a cinematic showdown that I have coming out very shortly. Stay tuned for that. And pretty much first thing you're gonna wanna do, and I think you should know this when exporting in Premiere, is you're gonna have to select what you wanna export. So this is gonna be your in and out point. So your I key on your keyboard to select your in point, or your O key to select your out point. You can also press plus here, and you can find the mark out and mark in point, and then do it that way. Another even faster way to do it is come up to keyboard shortcuts and search up mark clip. If your tracker is on a certain clip and you press whatever your keyboard shortcut for mark clip is, it'll instantly just select that clip. So that's great for just exporting single videos. You can just come up to it and then just press M, instantly selects that from in to out. Super useful and super quick. So let's select this whole sequence here. I like to just mark one of the clips and then just drag out the ends. Now, next thing you're gonna do is either come up to File and press Export Media, or you can press the Control M key. The Control M key is the shortcut, and I always suggest you guys learn the shortcuts. It's a lot faster. This is gonna be the panel you're gonna come up to. Starting at the top, match sequence settings. This will pretty much just take whatever the sequence settings you have are and match them into the export, what it's gonna be. I would not recommend doing this. You're usually gonna put in a pretty bad format that you're gonna lose a lot of compression. I don't know all the formats, I'll be honest, but I do know the two most popular ones are gonna be H.246, and that's pretty much regular video that goes online and can be easily shared. Or you have QuickTime. This is pretty much gonna be a After Effects kind of file, I would say. It's a lot easier to scrub through in the timeline if you export it, but don't worry about that. If we're just exporting to go on YouTube, Instagram, all that stuff, H.246 is gonna be our go-to, not the Blu-ray version. Also, if you just wanna export audio, just quick tip, that's in here too. You can just find the MP3 file or ACC audio, and that'll just export the audio. So if you're doing a podcast or anything like that, which I usually do, I usually export one of those files. Preset. So this is pretty much going to give you a couple regular presets that they have created for you. I have a couple created here, but we're going to completely skip those, and we're going to come down to all the preset ones here. So the ones I like to sometimes use are the YouTube and Vimeo ones. They have a Facebook one as well that you could use. These are just great because these are the set in stone ones that Premiere Pro knows is going to look good on those formats. So if you are exporting to YouTube and you really need to be quick and you don't have time to change all your settings, you can just go for those. But I would recommend just going for a custom one. So just choose anything, but you're going to change it. Over here, you also have save preset, import preset, and delete preset. So if you do have all your settings selected, you can press save preset. It'll save all those settings. Import presets if you're importing some from externally. Output name. This is going to be where you are selecting to output your video. So you can be downloads, music, all that stuff, and change the name here as well. And then also you can add comments here if you want to be like, great video, super fun, edit. Export audio, export video if you don't export the video, if you don't export the audio. Now here it'll give you a little summary of what's going on. So the output and the source. Let me explain this real quick. The output is what the video is outputted as. The source is what the video was initially. So initially here, sequence Dax.rule is a 1920 by 1080 1 pixel ratio. Pretty much means the pixels 1 by 1 kind of thing. It's not like a stretched pixel. The frame rate, and then a couple other information about audio and other things, but that doesn't really matter. Then the output is going to show you what it's going to output to. Usually you want these to be pretty similar. As you can see, 1920 by 1080 1 pixel. Frame rate's the same. That's the same. So you just want to make sure those are kind of similar, but we're going to move on down here. So effects, first panel. I've never used this myself, but if you want to add effects to your video after you export it, you can do that here. So if you want to add a LUT, you can press the check here and then add any of the LUTs that you have. You can even search LUTs. I wouldn't recommend doing this because it's going to go over your title cards. It's going to go over things that you don't want. And if you already added a LUT, it's just going to double up that LUT. So the only time I've ever used this is if I have a problem. Sometimes there's a weird glitch in Premiere where you export it with certain LUTs and they don't actually apply. So you actually have to apply the LUT through here. That's just a quick tip for you if you're ever having not graded footage when you export it, even though it's graded in Premiere Pro. That could be the problem. SDR conform is pretty much going to add a little brightness, contrast, all that stuff that you can change. Add an image overlay if you want. I honestly have never used these. These are just some things that you can apply before you export, but usually you want your video to be final before you go into export module here. We're gonna move to video. This is very important. Width and height. So it's pretty much gonna be the pixel width and height. 1920 by 1080 is the regular width and height of a video. If you want an Instagram size video, it would be reverse, so 1080 by 1920. If you want an Instagram story size video, that's what it's gonna be. If you want an Instagram post story, that's a portrait. 1350 by 1080 is going to be the size you're going to want. I'm going to link below a little little document that shows you pretty much all the pixel sizes that you can use on social media platforms, YouTube, all this stuff, so that you know you're exporting to the right video size. You can also press the match source button. This will pretty much, again, match the source. It's actually a great button to press. I don't mind pressing this button because it'll pretty much select everything that you had initially and export it to similar. Because if you're exporting completely different sizes and all this stuff, it's going to mess up the export. Your video is going to look terrible. And then here are the check marks. Match sources, you can go lock. You can't select them. If you want to be able to select them, just uncheck it. This is pretty much going to unlock the file size. So right now, if I change one, it's going to change the other to keep it kind of the same ratio. But if you want to change that and make it really weird looking, frame rate is going to be your frame rate. So 24 frames per second or 23.976. Most cameras shoot 23.976 unless you are shooting on a high budget camera. They can usually shoot true 24. Not going to make a difference at all. If I export to 24 frames a second and I shot in 23.976, not gonna make a difference. Field order progressive, this I wouldn't change. This is pretty much how it interprets the pixels, something like that. The pixel ratio, like I said before, is a square pixel is what you want. You want a 1x1. You don't want an anamorphic, which is like a 2x1, so it can be more stretched. Unless you are playing with that kind of stuff, I would research up on that. TV standard, PAL or NTSC. If you are in North America, you're gonna be using NTSC. PAL is for Europeans and things like that. They use a PAL system, which means like their standard is 25 frames per second, 50 frames per second, something like that. Render at maximum depth. If you want that extra quality, render at maximum depth. You really want that depth. That's just something that can speed up your edit process if you don't actually need it. Encoding settings is pretty much going to be how you're going to encode the video. Software encoding, so use the software, or hardware is going to be using your graphics card. For some reason, I'm not able to change it here because it says I don't actually have the minimum requirements, but I think it will change once I start exporting. Encoding settings, if you're doing for YouTube, anything like that, you want to keep it at main and 4.1. Usually this will be instantly selected if you do press match source. That I wouldn't touch myself because you can mess up the video. Moving on down here, high dynamic range, these stuff for some reason I can't click, but I think that's because of my encoding settings. We're gonna move on to bitrate. Bitrate is very important. So you have a couple options here. Constant bitrate, variable bitrate, one pass, variable bitrate. Constant bitrate is gonna choose a bitrate and it's gonna consistently analyze all those frames and keep your bitrate consistent. What the variable bitrate is going to do is pretty much, it's going to analyze every frame. It's going to select how much quality should I put into this frame, how detailed is it, how much do I have to put. So if it's just a black screen, it doesn't have to use a lot of detail, but if it's a meticulous, building or something like that, it's going to have to put a lot of detail, so it's going to have to use a higher bitrate. So here you can select pretty much the bitrate level that you want your video for. Me, myself, I like to use a constant bitrate. This just makes sure that every single frame is going to be high quality and it doesn't mess up at some point. If you are doing it for Instagram, I usually shoot a 10. If you're doing YouTube, you can do something a lot higher, like a 40. Don't have to touch that. That just has something to do with keyframes. And if video is VR, you can check the video is VR, but this video is not VR, so we're gonna move on. Audio, ACC or MPEG, usually leave at ACC. MPEG is not a great file format. Audio codec, usually leave at ACC as well. Sample rate, all this stuff, you just want to make sure you're matching, like I said before, to the summary. So your source was 1400 hertz stereo, so we're going to leave it at 1400. Audio quality, high, medium, low. Of course, we want to do high audio quality. And then the bit rate, of course, as high as we can get it, because the bit rate in audio doesn't add a lot of file size. One quick thing, as we're going through all this, estimated file size is going to be down here, 167 megabytes. So you can see as you change the settings, what's adding more file size and what is adding less file size. Multiplexer, don't have to deal with that. Captions, didn't add any captions. A cool little thing here is publish. Publish, you can actually instantly publish to things when you're exporting. So Adobe Creative Cloud, Adobe Stock, Behance, Facebook, FTP, I don't know what that is, Twitter, Vimeo, YouTube. Sometimes I actually use the YouTube one. If you sign in, then right when I'm done, it'll instantly start uploading that video to YouTube, and I don't have to go into YouTube and select a file. All this stuff instantly shows up in YouTube. The one thing though is if you are a YouTuber and you have upload defaults, it won't use the upload default. So that's why sometimes I don't actually use it, because I want those upload defaults to be there. I don't have to go to another video, copy, paste it over. But that's just something there if you want to speed up your workflow. Render at maximum quality. Why would you want to check that? You want maximum quality. Use previews is a cool little thing here. If while you're editing, you're rendering previews and you have something like using something like QuickTime, something that actually uses this workflow, because the H.246 files don't actually, mainly all files you shoot don't use it unless you transcode it into QuickTime format. When you are rendering videos, so let's say you press the enter button, it renders all those videos, you're using those previews. So you're taking those videos and you're putting them into the final export, so it doesn't have to re-render them. Makes the export super quick. Import into project. If once you're done exporting the video, you want to import it back into the project, you can do that. Start time code, usually 00, but if you want to start it halfway through the video, the export, then you can do that. Render alpha channel only will pretty much only render the light parts of the video, won't render color, something like that, but I wouldn't have to touch that myself. Time interpolation, frame blending, or optical flow. This is pretty much how the frames will go with each other. Frame sampling will pretty much be, each frame will be its own. Frame blending will blend the frames together. And then optical flow will kind of take two frames and make a guess. It's AI technology. Frame sampling, leave it at that. Metadata in the bottom right corner here, if you want to add any sort of metadata files. If you don't know what metadata is, it's pretty much information in the files. So like, you know, the length of a video, that's metadata. The, you know, name of the video, that's metadata. And pretty much here I have my video. Quick tip for you guys, if you are exporting to YouTube, I would usually come and I would just export it as a 4K file, because when you're uploading a 4K file to YouTube, the compression is less. It makes the video look a lot cleaner. So I would recommend exporting your 1080p YouTube videos in 4K, uploading to YouTube in 4K. Don't worry, it won't mess up the quality, and then you can have higher quality files. Now, some final tips for you guys. If you guys go check out that link in the bio, like I mentioned before, you can find the file size for Instagram. One issue you might have is if you're trying to export directly from the sequence that was actually a 1080 sequence into an Instagram 4x5 file, you're gonna have to come up to here, and scale to fit is what you'll have, so it'll look kind of like this. You have to press scale to fill. This will fill the frame, so pretty much you don't have to make multiple sequences if you're trying to export a video in like 8 different platforms and in different crop sizes. Stretch to fill will pretty much stretch the video and make it fill. You don't want to do that. You want scale to fill. Here you can also change your in and out points, which is kind of fun to do. Yeah, this is pretty much if you want to change your in to out points. So once you've done doing all your little settings changes, like I mentioned to you guys, you can come up here and press save preset. This will pretty much let you name the preset, save effects, and save publish settings. The effect settings are pretty much the first ones I went through with the lumetri color. If you don't want those being saved, you don't have to select that. And also the publish settings are the last ones about, you know, instant upload to YouTube, all that stuff. Because if you save that, every time you export with that preset, it's going to be uploading that video. So you want to be careful of that. Now you have a couple options here. You can cancel if you want, queue, or export. Export will export through Premiere Pro, so you'll be locked out right here. It'll start exporting right here. You can't start editing again. You can't do any of that. Me myself, I like to use that. If it's a quick little export, it's going to take, you know, a minute or something like that. I can export quickly. Or you can press the Q button, which will open up Media Encoder. Most people don't like Media Encoder, but I actually really enjoy Media Encoder. I think it's a great app and it works great. It just takes a little time to open, but once it's open, it's great for exporting multiple videos. So if you're exporting, you know, one YouTube size video, one for Instagram, one for TikTok, one for Facebook, you can do that by, you know, selecting the videos, queuing them all, and then they're all 4 listed in Media Encoder, and you can press enter to start that export. So now we're here in Media Encoder. As you can see, it looks crazy. It's pretty much like a boosted export window. If you think of it, you can pretty much just drag things in and encode them. You're gonna have your media browser on the left here, where you can pretty much select all the media on your hard drive. You got all your presets and groups down here, but this is pretty much what we want, the Q file. So here shows you pretty much all the same settings we had before. H.246 is right here. If you want to change that, you can change that. Preset, if you want to change that, you can change that. Output file, you can actually select that, and then you can choose where you want to output it to. Export settings, if you want to open up the same dialog box we had before, and you can change all those. Skip selection will pretty much, if there's multiple of these in here, so you start exporting it, it'll skip this one, come back to it later. Duplicate it if you want to duplicate the same export it twice. Remove if you want to remove it, but pretty much all you're gonna have to do is just press enter. Here at the bottom, it's gonna say encoding. It's gonna encode the file itself. Do you see how fast it's going? But now I can actually come back into Premiere, you know, keep editing, do my thing. One thing though is if you are playing video in Premiere Pro, it pauses the video in Media Encoder. So you need to not be playing video, but you can still make edits and things like that. This is great sometimes, and it's also just great for exporting multiple things at once, because you do it all once and then you just press enter. It'll instantly export everything to where you had it going. So yeah, that's the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys learned something. Question today for you guys, let me know down below if there's something I missed or something you want me to go into more detail or answer in the comments below, because I feel like I kind of skimmed over a couple things that might need a little more explaining. So let me know in the comments below. As always, gently tap that like button if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe. I got new videos coming out every single week, 3 videos a week. Hit that notification bell if you want to be notified every time I drop a new video, and creators, keep creating. Peace. Just anything, money can't buy me. No, you can't buy my love. When you mess up